everyone, to the webinar 7 Tips to Make the Most of Your Time at Home During the Coronavirus Outbreak. First thing, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you have your phone on, if you could please put it on silent so that you can participate in the webinar without any distractions. And then I just want to remind everyone, we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so hold on to your questions. And I wanted to start off just getting to know from everybody what grade your child is in. So I'm going to put up a poll here. And if you could just answer, that would be excellent. Then I can get a sense of where everyone is at, because the needs will be different depending on who's in the room today. Okay, I see the numbers coming in. Almost there. Okay, so this is interesting. It looks like the majority of people have children who are in grade 11. And then we have people who have children in grade 10 and 9, and then some in grade 12 and 8. Excellent. Okay, this is very helpful to me because it gives me a sense of where I can focus my energy for the webinar. Thank you. So I want to just start off telling you a little bit about me. I'm a former Harvard admissions interviewer and Harvard graduate, and I was trained by the deans of admissions of Ivy League universities and have a lot of inside secrets in what they look for in college applications. I have a master's of art in education, and I'm a former Waldorf teacher. Waldorf schools are known for encouraging creativity. I've also served in the admissions committee for the Illinois Math and Science Academy, and I was invited to be a judge for the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair. And then my essay writing expertise was published in Admitsy's ebook on essay writing. So I gave some critiques on college application essays for that book. I have helped students for more than 9 years get into top universities such as Harvard, Stanford, Brown, Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, MIT, Northwestern, Dartmouth, University of Chicago, and University of California, Berkeley. These are just some of the few universities that I've helped students get into. So I thought this would be a great quote for today. The entire world, we are in a pandemic and crisis that no one ever expected a few months ago. And it is an opportunity for all of us to choose to use this moment for growth and development. And this quote by Eckhart Tolle points us to that we have a choice. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Of course, if your school is offering online classes and continuing education that way, then your priority is to maintain good grades. Obviously, college admissions officers will be taking school closures and online classes into account when they read admissions applications for next year. So all of that is fluid, but you should know that the admissions officers are going to be giving a lot more leeway in a whole variety of areas related to college admissions because of the coronavirus. So how that is going to unfold in the coming months, we don't know yet, but we know that there will be understanding. There's been different schools responding in different ways. The number one priority, of course, keeping up with good grades. And then how do you do that? Well, the best way to do that is to get help from tutors, buddies, study groups, and stay accountable that way. Some of you have noticed that universities, those of you who are in grade 12, for example, may have noticed that universities are extending their deadlines, some of them. If you would like to get a list of the universities that have extended their deadlines, you can go to this website, nacac.net, nacacnet.org/college admission status coronavirus. Universities have been canceled as well as schools. College fairs have been canceled. And so for those of you in grade 12, usually March, April is the time when you visit universities and make your final decision on where you're going to school. But because that may not be possible, there's a couple different options that you can utilize to get a better sense of the school if you have not visited in the past. One of these is to take a virtual tour. Uvisit.com offers lots of virtual tours. And then look at social media and the college websites themselves for information. And also tap your network of students who you know or any alumni who went to that school. This, of course, does apply to grade 11 students, but they may have some more time as this situation unfolds. So there's been a lot of changes. Many of the tests that students normally take for college admissions have been canceled or rescheduled. Refunds may be issued. In addition, some universities have come out with new policies recently. MIT has announced that they will not be requiring SAT subject test scores, and Case Western just went test optional. To find out the latest on the SAT and ACT exams, please make sure to visit the website for the SAT, collegeboard.org, and for the ACT, act.org. For the AP exams, what I've heard from collegeboard.org is that they are offering free exam prep classes, and also that they will be giving students the option to take the exam at home. It'll be a shortened version of the exam because students would have completed around 75% of the material to be covered. And then keep in mind that there's always online tutoring options. I know students who are still learning music, taking music lessons, whether it's piano or voice or art lessons. I have a friend who's a pastel painter and she gives online lessons. So if you can do music and art, you can certainly do any kind of academic work online. There's also local and peer tutors that you should know. There should be a list at your library or school of local or peer tutors that you can get a hold of. And then Wisent.com is an excellent resource to find tutors locally or in any geographical area. Of course, that doesn't matter so much now because of everything happening online. And then we have some tutors at Ivy League Potential, award-winning tutors who can help with SAT and ACT prep, as well as academic subjects. So those of you who may have seen my webinar on the 4-step plan to get into Harvard, Stanford, and top colleges will remember this slide. It tells you that the college application can be reviewed for about 15 minutes before the admissions officer makes a decision whether to keep it in the yes or the no pile or to look at it later and have other people look at it. And as you can see, I've color coded around 15 different areas that come into play with college admissions applications. Two of these, the GPA and the standardized tests, have to do with pure quantitative numbers. And then everything else is more of a qualitative kind of evaluation. So we want to keep this in mind because we want to remember that it's a holistic evaluation, and a lot of what is reviewed in the college application process is actually not numbers, but many different kinds of activities, essays, resumes, recommendation letters, and so forth. So, William Fitzsimmons, the Dean of Admissions at Harvard, says that students' intellectual imagination, strength of character, and their ability to exercise good judgment, these are critical factors in the admissions process. So we have to remember that this is a very subjective process, the admissions application review. And besides the numbers, there are all those different aspects. And these are the qualities that they're looking for in essays, resumes, and so forth. So, how do you develop strength of character? I think one of the best books that I've seen for students is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And as you read this book, it's the teen version of the best-selling book. And as you read this book, you will notice that it's important for people to develop a personal mission statement. So that is very, very important because as we talk today about strength of character, we realize that that needs to be very strong during this time where everyone is being tested to the limits and faced with uncertainty. This will definitely test our character and help us grow and develop in ways that we did not think possible. It's also good to remember that an IBM study of 1,500 top executives around the world showed that robots will be replacing up to 38% of jobs in the next 15 years. So if a robot can do your job, I'm sure that it would cost a lot less. And the question is, why would an employer hire you? So John Andrews, head of technology at PricewaterhouseCoopers, says that creative and critical thinking will be highly valued, as will emotional intelligence. So this is very important. Creative and critical thinking and emotional intelligence. So this is a cute little cartoon I found. It reminds us the importance of doing nothing because it's in those moments when you're going on long walks or have nothing to do that creativity, just kind of naturally emerges. The muse will give you ideas that you wouldn't have thought of if you're trying really hard. And the question that many of us need to ask is that a reality? Is that the kind of life that we all live where we have that time for doing nothing? Unfortunately, not, because there would be a lot more creativity that would be noticed. If you are creative, you are healthy, you're relaxed, you're inspired, you're in the zone, and you're in the flow state. So these are qualities that are actually quite rare these days. But they are important, and it's important to develop not only strength of character, but all the qualities for students to be well rounded. And studies have shown that students who are well rounded are more successful, they're resilient, they're happy in their life in the long run. And this is why many people understand that colleges are looking for well rounded students. They're actually looking for
both students who are well rounded, but also have a deep area of mastery and focus. But let's go over the 9 types of intelligence that Howard Gardner, a professor at Harvard, describes. Usually at school, they emphasize what we call logical intelligence, which is math and science, and linguistic, which is reading and writing, and often musical intelligence, kinesthetic or bodily intelligence, and visual, artistic intelligence. Those are the programs that get cut first during budget cuts. So students don't have the opportunity to actually develop those. In addition, we have the interpersonal intelligence, which so many people feel is important, and certainly not only in the workplace, but in life, to be able to communicate effectively with others and collaborate with others is critical. And then some of the other types of intelligence that often get forgotten: intrapersonal intelligence, which is knowing one's own thoughts and feelings, and naturalistic intelligence, connecting with the natural world, and finally, existential intelligence. So, asking those deeper questions about the meaning of life: why are we here? What am I doing here? So, when we talked about that personal mission statement, that would be tapping into that kind of intelligence. I saw this photo the other day, which I really appreciated. It says, in a pandemic, self isolation is called quarantine. In Buddhism, it is called retreat. From the cave of our home, like the meditators of ancient times, we can consciously kindle a lamp of compassion and connection. And I say this not only because I have been on many retreats throughout my life, but also because in the Tibetan tradition and in some of the other longstanding spiritual traditions, uh, children as young as 7 or 8 years old were often sent to a monastery to develop these other types of intelligence, existential intelligence. And so we take this opportunity as we are self isolating all over the world to develop this kind of intelligence, one amongst many types of intelligence that we now have time to develop. And just to remember that people all over the world have developed this type of intelligence, even as young as 7 or 8 years old, let alone the teenage years. So it is definitely possible. Unfortunately, that's not where most teenagers are at these days. This cute little cartoon, finally, the fourth ape, he's the sum of the first three. He sees nobody, hears nobody, and speaks to nobody. And unfortunately, that is the reality of where we are at. Technology, for all of its gifts that it has given us, has also created isolation. So it's interesting because in this moment with the coronavirus, we are actually using technology to connect with each other. But otherwise, technology has also isolated us from direct human contact and created very isolated, self contained kind of environments where people can hide out. So it is important actually during this time that we make sure that there's a balance and that students are not left alone by themselves the whole day, so that they get into that rut, which was already there before, but it can be exacerbated now if they're at home. Of course, teenagers are definitely harder to work with because it is harder for them to stay isolated. Friends are super important to them, so of course, this is going to be important for them to maintain their connections, and that is definitely something that we encourage, but also in a balanced way. So, this slide talks about what many of us think makes us productive, working really hard all the time. But actually, what has been shown to help people be more productive is living more of a balanced lifestyle, exercising, eating well, and sleeping well, and then working hard and taking time off. And the coronavirus situation, because we are self isolating, gives us this time, the time that, most of us never had to really do all these things because we were busy running from here to there, waking up early. A lot of teenagers complain that school starts too early. So now this is an opportunity for them to sleep in a little longer than they normally would, and if they want to go to bed later, then that's fine too. That's something that research has shown about the teenage brain, that it does better, with late hours, but also getting up later. So sleep will be a big benefit from teenagers not having to wake up so early in the morning. And then also healthy eating, because a lot of families are now cooking more that they're at home and not just buying packaged foods. So these are all some of the benefits that we're learning about. And then also exercise, the time to exercise, and then the time off to explore other things. And if you notice, this slide talks about self care in a variety of areas. Physically, sleep, exercise, stretching, food, drinking enough water. Mental self care, positive affirmations, reading, practicing mindfulness, watching the content you consume. Emotional self care, setting healthy boundaries, time with loved ones, dancing and singing, playing art and music. And then spiritual self care, meditation, inspiration, time in nature, and prayer. And if you notice, almost all of these can be done at home. You don't have to go out for any of this. Time with loved ones, that's the one thing that's challenging. Of course, families will be together, parents and their children. And for some families that's working out wonderfully, and for other families it's a challenge because they're not used to being at home together, especially teenagers and their parents all working from home at the same time. Usually with summer breaks, parents are working and teenagers may be home alone, or vacations, and that's a different story. But that's definitely been a challenge for some families. And then also in terms of the friends situation with teenagers, um, all of that would have to be done virtually nowadays during this outbreak. I know someone who had a birthday party on Zoom, a teenager who had a birthday party on Zoom. So people are using technology to connect, and that's really good. But basically, everything else on this slide can be done at home. And these are things that we don't take the time to do. So again, this is an opportunity to do all of these kinds of things, explore and go deeper in ways that can have profound impacts in your life. I like this slide. Meditation, accepting your own friend request. That's very sweet. Because often we're running around here and there, even during the school year. I mean, kids are always running from one activity to another. But even during the summertime, they're running from one activity to another, one program, participating in one program, then another program, this internship and that. So, I've talked about this, to be honest, with a lot of my students, but it's not something that really has gone deep within because everyone is so busy running around. Also, we should remember that our home is not just our physical environment. The home is also in the words that we speak to ourselves and the thoughts that we think. So that's our home too. And so as we are at home, this is a moment for us to reflect on self-talk. What do we say to each other and to ourselves? and what is the emotion and the thought behind them? What are the beliefs? Are they limiting or are they liberating? So here's an example of a daily schedule for a family. Just this is like a very simple example of creating a balanced kind of schedule. And so the goal is for everyone to create a schedule that is balanced with academics, exercise, creative time, chores, fresh air, and walking and exercising, and so forth. Having a schedule and sticking to it will pay off in the long run, much more than just allowing yourself to drift off and do whatever you want. Although that is nice for a few days, and of course, some people may need longer than a few days for that, but overall, having a schedule would be very important. So, if I had to put it in a nutshell in terms of time management, I would say that there's three steps to creating a schedule. So, the first one is to read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and develop a personal mission statement because that will guide everything that you do during this time. The second is to look at the book You're Smarter Than You Think by Thomas Armstrong. He talks about multiple intelligences, and by reading that book, you can learn a little bit about your strengths and weaknesses, and also how to develop different types of intelligence that you may not be so strong in. And you can set goals for developing intelligence in all 9 areas. That way, you will be well rounded and also have a deep focus. And then finally, once you have your mission statement and you have some goals for developing those areas of your life that need help, Getting Things Done for Teens by David Allen is an excellent book, very practical on how to stay focused and create a schedule, create a to do list that makes sense and doesn't feel overwhelming. And once you have your balanced schedule, you can do the simple things of setting an alarm like you would in a normal day, and then eating your breakfast, getting dressed, and then going to your quiet area for study and work. So, backup summer plans are important because we do not know how long the virus outbreak will be affecting our lives. Usually, during the summer, this is a time for students to go deeper and focus in on at least one academic area that they would like to master. So, that would be the purpose of a student's summer in general. Of course, going out into a summer program that may not happen this summer if programs are canceled. So that means having backup, and basically that means looking online and reading books. So there is a website that I just found out about today, isbe.net/keep learning, and that's just something that was put together by the Illinois Board of Education, but I'm sure there are similar kinds of sites around the country and around the world. And then also some of the most popular online classes. MIT has several online classes. Coursera and edX are very popular amongst high school and college students and adults. And then this website, freecodecamp.org, is also excellent for students who want to learn to code. Of course, developing your backup um, will involve a lot more than just reading and writing. But it's a good beginning, basically, because summer programs may be canceled. Some summer programs may go virtual, and that's fine. You can still participate in them. But this is a good starting point to developing your deep focus. And what you want to do once you have that area that you've decided you want to focus on is you want to work on special projects. It could be on an area of deep focus, but it could also be in other areas where you just want to develop, become more well-rounded in other areas. Maybe you're not going to become a master, but maybe you want to learn how to watercolor paint or something. So special projects are something that you can do now as well as the summertime. or any time that you have, when you're not working super hard to get your grades up. So congressionalaward.org is a website that I love. You just register online and you set goals for yourself. And it's an award that anyone can win because you're only competing against yourself, not anyone else. And what I like about this is you have to set goals in 4 areas: public service, personal development, physical fitness, and an expedition. And this is really good because it gives students a structure. It has guidelines as to how many hours they should be working. And then, they have to describe what they learned from the project that they accomplished or completed. So, this is really good for self directed learning. It gives a lot of guidelines and structure. Um, and I use this with my students. Finally, it's important to remember that we all have inner strength. I love this quote. We all have an unsuspected reserve of strength inside that emerges when life puts us to the test. Isabella Tende. Beautiful quote, and it's true. And we are obviously all being put to the test at this moment and possibly for several weeks to come. One of the best resources I have found for students and adults to develop inner strength in the face of uncertainty are the exercises that are based on research, neuroscience research, to cultivate happiness and balance in one's life. The Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley has a free online class where I think it's very popular. More than 450,000 students have taken it. But it's an excellent class to help students develop that inner strength. And one of the most important pieces of advice I ever received was to maintain curiosity in the face of the unknown, to not just recoil into fear, but to see that fear and allow it to dissolve by welcoming it and then maintaining an attitude of curiosity. This slide is very helpful to remember. Viruses are contagious, and so is panic, fear, hysteria. Calm, love, enthusiasm, kindness, and joy. Choose wisely. So I think this is very important for us to remember because I feel that one of the benefits of this self isolation is an active momentum to build community. At this time, this will be having to be done online, but it will definitely encourage us to cooperate and collaborate with each other. And there are various communities online that you may already be a part of. Maybe your extracurricular activities are deciding to meet online. Maybe they're not. If they're not, then you can always create your own community. My advice for students is to make a commitment to participate in a study group or with a buddy for a daily check in. I think it's really important for students to do that on their own because if they don't do that, it's unlikely that they may be listening to their parents. But having peers to check in with is really, really helpful. And I also feel that this is actually the most important thing that we can all do to stay sane at this time and help each other. Um, and it also works really well for changing the educational momentum of our lives from being passive learners to being active learners, self-directed learners. So this is really key, I feel. Without this, I think most students would be lost. There's probably a rare few that can work alone and independently and be completely happy, and the introverts at the extreme end of the introverted spectrum. But for most people, that is not the case. we need social communities to stay in touch with and lean on in times of trouble. So, in terms of going through this time together, the coronavirus time, there's a couple options. First of all, we don't know how long this may last, but you can go at it alone, or you can also try to get help. And I do offer help. I offer private coaching for students. I have a 90% success rate for qualified students. And I start with students as early as eighth grade. And if you're interested in that, you can go online on my website, ivyleaguepotential.com, and either send me an email or set up a free consultation. A lot of families feel that it's a worthy investment because they can save money in college tuition if they win scholarships. And most students, whether they get into an Ivy League or not, will certainly make great strides in getting into honors colleges or scholarships. So the whole process is very, important. You can reach for the stars, and then of course at some point you have to let go because you don't have control. But private coaching is definitely an option. And I also have an online class that I developed some years ago that I use with my students. And this is a class, for those students who would love to get some coaching, videos, and expertise on all the areas required for college admissions. So, how to develop your academic focus, preparing for standardized tests, how to get good recommendation letters, selecting a college list that's balanced with enough safety target and reach schools, how to show demonstrated interest, how to prepare for interviews, how to evaluate acceptance letters, financial aid, negotiations, essay writing, resume writing, career exploration, extracurricular activities, planning your summer, selecting high school classes, and study skills. And these are all the topics that are covered in the online class. I don't have time to go into detail with all of these areas, but if you go onto the website and sign up for the four-step plan, then that will go into detail into all these areas so that you can understand what's involved in college admissions. The college admissions roadmap class has 15 training videos, more than 20 training audios, 30 pages of cheat sheets, and it's 100% online. So you can do this, whenever you have time for it. So this is, again, something that you can really take advantage of now that you have extra time. You're not commuting to school or participating in the extracurriculars that you normally would. You can really get a heads up on your college application journey. Now, normally, I do 20 Q&A sessions a year with the online class to help students stay inspired and accountable through group coaching. But during this time of the coronavirus outbreak, I will be offering Q&A phone calls twice a week for students in the online class. So that's a big bonus because I think the more structure and accountability you have, the better. And it's only a $29.99 investment per month if it's billed annually, or $39.99 billed monthly. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time for the monthly option and before your renewal date for the annual option. And I'm also offering scholarships to students who cannot afford the class so that they can attend free of cost. They just need to email me. And this is a huge discount. The online class normally goes for around $99 a month, so this is a 60% discount. This is a proud Stanford father whose quote I will never forget because he was so excited when his daughter got into Stanford. As a parent, if you are ever going to invest in anything, this is it, your child's future. Sonia's advice was frankly priceless, the holy grail. The result was like winning the Masters, the Powerball, the Daytona 500, the Monaco F1 GP, the Super Bowl, the World Series, the America's Cup, and a Nobel Peace Prize on the same day. So obviously, he was very excited. He was excited particularly because the college counselor at this very wealthy school district and well known school in Illinois told him that his daughter did not have a chance of getting into Stanford. So when she got in with my help, he was really, really excited. And this is the link if you wanted to sign up for the online class. I also wanted to open it up now for questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type those questions in the chat box. And then from there, we can answer them. Okay, here's a question. Let's see. About time in nature during the lockdown. Are we allowed outside? I've heard that some parks are closed, and especially the ones where little kids can play in the playground because that can spread infection. But I believe that they are allowing time to walk outside as long as you have a 6 foot distance between you and anyone else. Of course, this all depends on local rules and regulations, your country and state and region that you live in, but that's what I understand. Question here. Do I offer any gap year programs? I do help students to develop and explore gap year options, definitely. And that's something that may be happening more and more because we don't know what's going to happen yet. But if the universities decide that they may only be offering online classes in the summer or fall, then students may choose to take some time off, like a semester off or a year off, and a gap year and do something else that they would like to pursue. So yeah, that's definitely on the rise, popularity with gap years. Okay. Question, Kamalika, what can teenagers do to help the community during the outbreak? This is a great question. One of the things that teenagers can do, making sure, of course, that it is safe to do so, is to help the elderly. So I think that's really important because the elderly are the most at risk, and teenagers have, they're tech savvy. They can do things. For example, if you have a neighbor, you can call your neighbor and ask your neighbor, do you need food? Can I order some food for you from the grocery store? Either you can go pick it up yourself, if you're safe, or you can have an online order and then have the delivery come straight to your neighbor who needs help. And that's something, that may be very helpful for someone who's elderly who doesn't know how to do those things. So that would be something excellent. But, I think one of the best things that you can do in terms of helping is to actually take this time for self reflection and use it because it is such a rare time. Like I said, mostly during the school year and the summer, students are running around like crazy. So just taking this downtime as an opportunity to go inward and remember that leadership comes from the inside out and to develop that inner strength. Because once you have that inner strength, you can help others develop that. And it's something that we so often neglect in our society. And like I said, I've also worked with my students for many years, but this is an area that often gets neglected by most students because they are so busy being productive and, model citizens in some ways. But at the same time, as most of us know, there might come a time, whether it's a midlife crisis or earlier, where they feel the emptiness of just succeeding based on outward terms or based on external factors. And I certainly don't want to contribute to that kind of rat race mentality. So I feel at this time, teenagers, the thing that they can do is actually take this time to reflect. And that's what I'm going to be helping students do in the online class. Because if they pair up, especially with a buddy or a study group of people that they can count on and check in with on a daily basis, and then they come on these calls twice a week, then I think it can really help them to develop that depth of understanding that they normally would not have time for during the school year. So I think this is a great opportunity to do that. Okay, question, Aaron Feng. What are some ways to stay motivated when the temptation to procrastinate and do whatever you want is so strong? Yeah, so that's very important because I've noticed over the years it's much easier for students to procrastinate these days because you have like an iPhone or an iPad with you at all times. There's so many digital distractions. So I've actually talked to some of my parents, especially with students who have an extreme issue here, and recommended that they set limits on screen electronic usage. And I know it's a bit tricky. It's going to be trickier now. It has been tricky because a lot of schools are, using online platforms to record grades and things like that. And it's going to be even trickier now because everything's going online. So it's really important to have that balance. And that's why I think that the system or having a study group that you're accountable to and that you check in with every day is really important because, teenagers will listen to each other more than they will to their parents. And they certainly will listen to a professional a little bit more than they would their parents too. So that's why the twice a week phone calls and then having a peer accountability system, I think, is a really good combination so that they can set goals and help each other out in accomplishing those goals, encouraging each other, and so forth. Okay, question. How important is the SAT score during this time? At this time, the SAT and ACT requirements are still in place. They have not been dropped. The ACT was scheduled to offer an online version in September, anyways. So I'm not sure they might decide to implement that earlier if they can. We just don't know at this time. But the SAT and ACT are still important. So that is one of the things that you can work on during this time is to find a good tutor and to make sure that you're getting the help that you need for the SAT and ACT preparation. And again, this is something that students often don't get a lot of time to do during the school year because they're so busy with homework, and this is a perfect opportunity. Okay, Shivakirti, what are some good programs for the summertime? Well, there's a lot of good programs out there at universities. Um, a lot of universities all over the country offer summer programs for high school students, and those can be a good springboard for a student to start exploring deeply in a certain area. I'm assuming that a lot of those programs are going to go online as much as possible. So stay in tune and make sure that you still apply to those programs and just assume that they're going to go online if they can't meet in person. What you're gaining from those summer programs, whether it's Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, whatever you're participating in, is you're gaining the peer community of students who are interested in the same subject and the academic expertise of that teacher. And then, of course, having those discussions, they'll be through online discussion boards now, are just as effective in helping students learn. And then if those summer programs can be used as a springboard for further projects, independent work or team projects, then that's wonderful and that's optimum. Okay, Minson. Many juniors will not have accomplishments that they wanted to showcase since many state and national level competitions are canceled. What is your advice for them? Yes, I understand. I've had students in the same boat. Certainly, the admissions officers will know that, and in this way, you want to make sure that you don't get um, limited by the competitions. So competitions are wonderful if you win. If you don't win, and that's not a guarantee, of course, then they may not help you in the college admissions process. So in that way, projects are often a good alternative because you're not competing against anyone. You're learning on your own. You're developing your own project. So my advice is to, as a backup, is to have your own project that you work on and not just rely on competitions solely. Okay, William, do you think colleges will make any considerations for students who have had events such as tournaments canceled because of the outbreak? And should students try to find different options such as online competitions? Yeah, similar question. Yes, colleges will definitely take all that into consideration. They are, they have canceled their programs. They know that high schools have done the same. So that's all going to be taken into consideration for ninth, 10th, 11th graders. They know all that. So that will definitely be taken into consideration. But don't feel like you're a victim. That's the main thing to remember. Use everything as an opportunity for growth and development. So, like I said, if you're not going to be participating in a competition or a tournament, do a project, learn about something, develop your multiple intelligences. And if you really do that with great passion, you'll find ways to connect with others and to work on projects together. Collaboration is a big strength these days. If you can collaborate and if you can learn, self-directed learning projects and allow that creativity to bloom, I think that a lot of options will start to come your way. You have to, use this time with the downtime that you have, to go a little deeper in whatever you're doing. So, so yeah, don't worry about it because everyone is in the same boat, and colleges will be taking all of that into consideration for the next several years. Okay. What can international third world country students, where can they find their interests? In my country, most extracurriculars are either student gathering events or academic competitions. I think we should create our own activities. Yes, definitely. This is a time for us to create our own activities together, online as much as possible. And also it can be non-academic competitions as well, so keep that in mind too. There's so many creative things that students can do, and having the support of your community, whether it's your peers or advisors and teachers, that can all still be done even if you're not meeting in person. Okay, Ji Suli is asking a question. Could you recommend some special project or competition for students who love math, computer science, and dance? Let's see here. Well, I know of one student of mine who wrote an essay recently about tutoring. So he was a computer science tutor, and he helped a young woman who was not really interested in computer science develop that passion. She had an interest in music, though. So the way he taught her was musically. He taught her computer science musically, and then she got it and she loved it. And so, if you can find ways to combine your interests, then I think that's really powerful synergy when you do that. So, math, computers, and dance. Um, that's a very interesting combination. It doesn't all have to be together, but certainly if there's a way to combine a few of those areas, that would be fascinating. One of my students, a few years ago, who got into Stanford, she wrote an essay on the physics of ice skating. She was a international figure skating champion. So you can look at anything from a different angle. And that's the beauty of multiple intelligences, is because you can look at anything from as many as 9 or more different perspectives. So that's what I would recommend, is to get creative and think deeply about things from different perspectives. And that book that I mentioned is really helpful for students with different kinds of intelligence to understand that, how they can look at things, using their own strengths, but also developing those areas that are weaker. Um, and so I would highly recommend that book. And I'll send everyone a link to all the resources and websites that I mentioned in this webinar in an upcoming email. And then the last question here is from Chloe. What is the best way to convey inner strength to college admissions officers? Um, in terms of inner strength, the best way to convey that is through your essays, and it will also come out in recommendation letters. It'll come out in your resume. It'll come out in the interview. So it'll come out in all different ways. But definitely, who you are as a person, that's what's going to come out. And if you are someone with resilience and inner strength, that will be conveyed. Absolutely, no doubt. Okay. I think there's a few more questions that just came in. Let's see. Yes, I will be sending you references for those 9 types of intelligence. And then tips on working on scholarships during this time. A lot of scholarships have essays that you need to write in order to apply for them. So you can start doing a lot of research on scholarships at this time if you like. Certainly, that's a very useful um, use of your time, and that's very helpful. But what I found with scholarships is a lot of it depends on GPA and test scores. And then the essays, it's easier to win local scholarships than it is to win national scholarships, but you can certainly try. The more niche your scholarship is, and the more you're qualified in that way, the higher your chances of winning it. A lot of universities, just something you should be aware of is, let's say you win, a $5,000 scholarship from the Lions Club, and you got admitted to a university. That university might have given you $10,000 in scholarship. But when they find out that you won the $5,000 Lions Club scholarship, they can reduce their scholarship to $5,000, assuming that you're getting the 5 from Lions Club. So that's often something that happens with scholarships. And so just be aware that that's a trend. Um, so what I say to students is, if you're doing your best to get into a top college, you're also doing your best to win scholarships, because it's the same kind of process. They are looking for students with top grades, test scores, and extracurricular activities and leadership and so forth. Okay. I think that's all the time we have today. And I really, really encourage everyone to take this time to go and develop everything that doesn't get your attention in the normal school year or during the summertime. And for most of us, that's a lot of quiet time, a lot of downtime, letting go of expectations and developing that inner strength. And I'm here for you. If you would like to sign up for the online class, please go ahead and sign up and get with a buddy system, and it'll be a lot easier to go through this time rather than trying to go through it alone. So thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to staying in touch with you. Take care.